Welcome to the Thunderstock Show, collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. I'm your host, Ross Stockdale, Fractional CMO and owner of Thunderstock Marketing. Today's topic is going to be around this Eastern Asian philosophy where if you chase 2 rabbits, you catch 0. So what does this mean? Well, think about this. If you have 2 objects that you have equal attention on pursuing, they may go off in opposite directions and you may be standing in the same place. Always, this is the few time where I will use such intense language. You always need to have a prioritization, because if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. What this means in technical terms is if your goal is to become a successful business owner, but you are equally as interested in becoming a UFC world champion, you will likely become neither. In fact, I would bet the house on it that you would become neither, unless your business was to, be a UFC champion. Then that's not 2 goals. But if you have 2 distinct goals at the same time competing with one another, they're always competing for something, whether it's your time, your money, your attention, your emotional energy, whatever it is, they're always competing. So what you want to do, instead of chasing 2 rabbits at once, believe it or not, you want to chase 1. Because your percentage chance that you'll catch 1 object in which you're pursuing is much, much infinitely higher than if you're chasing 2. So why do I bring this up? Why is it important? From a philosophical standpoint, what I want people getting out of this podcast is to reach their goals, whether that's becoming healthier, whether that's, having more time left over, whatever it is, but you have to set your goal first. So I just got done with quarterly meetings where I'm setting these 90-day priorities for companies and for my own self. And it's important to take time, and I suggest at least every 90 days. Some people want sooner than later, whatever. At least 90 days. Don't wait for the whole year to say, okay, what is the priority for this next 90 days? How am I going to be focusing my attention? And then line it up and knock it down. So choose one, make progress, get it. Choose the next, make progress, get it. And then that accumulation, those campaigns, those rocks, those goals should all sort of coalesce and commingle and become intertwined for that pursuit of that one goal. There's infinite reasons why, but I'm going to give some stories. So I recently talked to a gentleman that his ambition is to start his own business. Another ambition is to become a pro fighter. Another ambition is to become a content creator. Another ambition is to, work on his health. And these are all great, but think about what can be sub goals. What of those ambitions do you care about the most? Which ones will make the most impact? And, he recently told me, I want to make this business thing work. I was like, okay, do you have your EIN? No, what's that? Okay. Do you have, what kind of business is it? I didn't get around to creating one yet. Okay. So you don't have an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp or a 501c3 or anything like that. You don't have a business structure. Do you have a business bank account? Well, no. Okay. So you don't have a business. Let me just get that straight. But you're telling me your goal is to create a business. Yes. Okay. So my answer to that is step 1, file the government paperwork and create a business. So LLC for him. Step 2, file for an EIN so that you have a tax identification. Step 3, get a business bank account so that you can do transactions and start building credit. And, the whole point of business is to trade something of value for money, right? That's the token we use, the dollars. Well, you can't trade that if you don't have a business bank account. And step 4 is finding people that want your product or service and want to give you money for it in exchange. And when I broke it down in these simple terms, he goes, okay, I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do this the next day. And then I'll start working on getting clients on Monday. Okay, great. Now I put you on a track and a path in order to obtain one of your goals. Then to further that conversation I recently had, he goes, well, I also, I want to save up money and go and become a fighter internationally. And I said, that's fine. I said, how do you plan to do that? Well, with a business. I said, the one you don't have created yet. Right. okay, so your first priority is business, right? Well, I mean, kind of, going back and forth. And I'm like, no, your first priority is business. Because if you're saying that the number one reason, the first objection you have why you couldn't reach your other goal is because your first goal isn't met yet, you don't have the financial freedom to do it yet, then you need to make your first goal to do this. Don't look at them both equally. Look at them in terms of chronological order, what needs to come in order of operations. When it comes first, once you solve X, then you solve Y. So hopefully that lesson stuck for this person, but that made me think of times in my own past where I've made the mistake of having, chasing two rabbits. One time, it's clear as day, I had always wanted to be a fighter. So I started at 7 years old doing Tung Soo Do, competed in point sparring competitions. By the time I was 10, I had a whole trophy room of traveling around the East Coast doing competitive karate as a kid. Then when I was 10 years old, I switched to wrestling, and then my whole focus was wrestling. And never won a state championship, never qualified for states in PA. The best I ever did was a league champion in junior high in terms of medals that I can remember. I did win the all-star match in the Tri-County area. That was a dual meet. That was cool, my last match in high school. And I did compete in college, and I was a varsity member, the worst varsity member record-wise on like a top 10 school in Division III. So by any stretch of the imagination, my goal... So my goal in high school was to become a college wrestler. Shot the goal way too low. Once I got the acceptance letter of the team, I was like, oh, I don't really have the best goal. So then my goal, was to figure out what I want to do with my life and, close out school. So I was always competing with weight cutting and wrestling in school and when I was in high school. And those were competing goals because one didn't support the other, weight cutting, with academic performance. And academic performance, I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to commit as much as I wanted in wrestling. So I would attribute some of my lack of success by not having prioritized goals and focus then. Now, fast forward to as an adult, I never really achieved in collegiate wrestling what I wanted to achieve competitively. So as a young adult in my early 20s, I signed up for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the anticipation that I would become an MMA fighter, which I ended up becoming an MMA fighter. But my goal at the time was to take it as far as I could. So I committed at the beginning of the year, January 2nd. And I reached out to a promoter and I said, yes, I'm going to take this fight. At the time, I weighed 205 pounds, okay? Close to what I am now. I was partying. I was very busy with a startup company that I was working for as a marketer. I was incredibly active socially. So I didn't have a goal. My goal was just to, live a good life at the time and do the things I enjoyed. And I was doing that if that was my goal. But then when I committed to becoming, a cage fighter, when I was serious and I signed the agreement to be at this place, at this time, at this weight, I had to lose 40 pounds. 165 was the weigh-in. And March 5th was the cage fight date. So January 2nd to March 5th, a little over 2 months. So I did that. I tried to become at the same time a incredibly successful marketer in a startup. And while the company was getting great results, I was banged up at work. I was nagging injuries from camp. I was cutting weight at sometimes. I may have had my boss at the time come in and watching Conor McGregor on YouTube during like lunch breaks and things. So maybe not as focused as I needed to be. But I thought, well, I'm busting my butt to start up, and I'm busting my butt moonlighting as a cage fighter. So I had the cage fight. It went great. I finished the person in the third round. So I was 1-0 with a finish, well on my way to the path. At that time, how did I get there? At the time, I woke up at 5 a.m. every single day, and I went to bed at 11 p.m. every single day. And the only thing I allowed myself to do was focus on training and diet and preparation, game plan for cage fighting, and then working, getting better at marketing. And I experienced in that short period of time, that 90-day period, my quarterly rock, I hit the rock of cage fighting, obviously when it was due March 5th, but I didn't have any follow-up for that. So I went from drinking casually, socially on weekends, seeing friends, running around, being, a normal 20-something-year-old, to not doing that. And then if I ever went out, it was socially, and it was also to promote the fight, and it was also to sell tickets. I also stopped the other hobbies I had, which was fine, not a huge sacrifice. Cleaned up my diet, so no alcohol, didn't indulge in sugar. It only worked. And then once I attained the goal, you need to have a follow-up goal after that. So once I attained the goal, now I got a girlfriend all of a sudden. Now I'm going out and partying again. Now I'm going out and sort of reverting back to my old, more carefree manner of living. But I still wanted to be a cage fighter. I had another fight booked for August, right? So from March to August, I gave myself 5 months. Pretty normal turnaround. And in that time, I got laid off from the startup. Position eliminated effectively. We grew the company at such a speed that they were hiring for other things and had the bandwidth to hire people way more experienced than a 25, 26-year-old at the time. So at the time, I was like, my only focus is cage fighting. But without having that work and that discipline and that grind of having, the full steady job, what I thought was going to happen was, okay, great, I'll become more successful at cage fighting, and then we'll see how really far I can take this dream and this goal, take it to the moon. What happened was I didn't fill the time wisely with a secondary goal. I didn't have the structure around, so I started slipping in my discipline. I'd go out and party. I was training more, but I was overtraining, getting more injured. I got injuries through camp that I didn't experience in my first camp in prior training, and all I focused on was this one fight. And it was like, at that time, if the opportunity for me to lose, that would have been earth shattering. And I did lose a 29-28 decision against a guy who had 5-1 record from out of state, and he was just a stud. It was a very tough challenge. Now, had I prepared like I did for the first fight, for the second fight, my confidence is I would have had a better chance at winning, right? Maybe I would have won, and then maybe I would have been a cage fighter, maybe. But I also learned that I had the wrong goal, right? So I didn't achieve the marketing startup. I did in so far as what I set out for. I didn't achieve the undefeated cage fighter. I am a 1-1 amateur cage fighter. So, but the most important lesson I learned is when I fully committed to doing that as my goal, I succeeded. But you need to have a goal, because you can only have one goal, make sure it's, be careful what you wish for, because it might just come true. So you have to be very careful with what you choose, because you have to sacrifice all else in order to obtain that goal. So in the Bible, in Genesis, they talk about Cain and Abel, and just without getting too preachy and whatnot, but Abel, he sacrificed everything. He sacrificed to the altar, the most important or the highest quality of meats and animals to God, and then Cain sacrificed vegetables and things that were easier to get, and kind of half-assed and was jealous and envious of the treatment of Abel. So Cain killed Abel. And Cain's punishment was to meander around the earth without his esteemed brother. And, he lived a long time, lonely and not very happy. So the point of that biblical verse is that, you get rewarded when you fully commit. You can't be half married. You can't be half pregnant. Same thing with your goals. You can't be half chasing a goal. And when you choose the wrong goal, you're not doing yourself or the world around you a service. In fact, either it's your goal is the wrong direction, or it's you're shooting too small, because then something else is the actual goal. You're just not consciously aware and focused on it. And I would say Cain's focus was, his goal was to outdo his brother or focus on his brother, and Abel's was to serve God and do the best he could. So one got rewarded, one got punished. And in more recent experience in my career was when I had a singular goal of growing a private equity firm. And in that, we grew it from $0 to $10 million a year in annual recurring revenue within 3 years. So I obtained that goal. But along the way, I always knew as a kid I wanted to be a father. So I met my wife, fell in love, in the delivery room for our first child, and only child at this time. I was splitting my attention away from being a supportive husband and soon-to-be father to doing Zoom calls and emails in this waiting room. And I realized at a religious experience, a spiritual awakening, that I cannot pursue the private equity goal the same way that I could as a father, as a childless person. And my real goal, which was made aware to me at the time, was to be the best father I could possibly be and be there for my family and make that work. So that was another instance where I didn't know I was chasing two goals, but I was. And now as a fractional CMO, one of the main benefits is I get to do podcasting from my home. I get to work from home. I get to pick up my daughter every day after daycare. I get to have breakfast with her just about darn near every day. I get to take a whole day out of the weekend on Saturday to spend time with her undivided. I still bust my butt for my clients and my business, but it's the focus, like the business supports my family, not sacrificing my family in support of a business. So that is one of the most recent lessons of chasing, two goals and prioritizing them, because the business gets a lot easier when I put guardrails around my time and what I'm willing to do and not do. And then becoming the best father and husband I can be becomes more obtainable and not only say easier, it's simpler, because I put constraints upon my other goals. So, I used to love golfing. Golfing is a great pastime, but when I became a father around the same time, not only did I start my own CMO business, tear my ACL, became a father around this time, but I haven't golfed since. And I had to say no to networking and golfing because I didn't have the time or the energy, attention, right? So that's another instance of like shedding away all that which is not in support of your goals. So the point of this is that I urge you to figure out what is it that you truly want the most in life. I firmly believe that you can have anything you want, but it comes at the price of everything else. And you can have anything you want, but you cannot have everything that you want. So be very careful what you wish for. And I get really passionate. I get worked up because one of the things about being a father and a trusted advisor of Fractional CMO is that I develop companies and people. And when I'm very choosy with who I think are worthy of my either mentorship or coaching or whatnot. And when I have someone that half-asses, that's okay. If their goal is to come to my class when I'm coaching MMA, and if their goal is to spend time and have fun and learn a skill and defend their family and get a workout in, I support those goals. Those goals are awesome. Like, I'm here for that. I will help you obtain those goals, I promise. But if your goal is to become a professional fighter, you tell me that your goal is, but your behavior dictates otherwise, I come down on you like a ton of bricks. I urge you so much that to your own self be true. Don't lie. You can, number one, most helpful goal setting tip, okay, is write the goal down everywhere that you can see it so it's top of your mind, but don't tell anyone, okay? And number two, if you're going to tell people your goal, commit to that goal and be consistent with your messaging, right? So many times I hear someone, they change their overarching big, hairy, audacious goal, their BHAG goal, their vision every 90 days. It's like, that's where your rock should change, the supporting campaigns and the supporting goals. But your North Star should be your big, hairy, audacious goal, your big goal. So don't change your big goal and sacrifice it for the woman in the red dress or the fanciful new opportunity. Because oftentimes, like, when you're alone in a room, you're before you go to bed, before your head hits the pillow, you're usually thinking about what your dream life looks like. And don't sacrifice your dream life for a hallucination of what that could be, or a distraction. And on the other side of that, I've coached people out of coming to my class because their goal is to start a business and be successful and see how far they could grow this business. And I've tried to help them grow this business. And sometimes as a coach, it's like the best thing you can do is help somebody make a decision on what the real goal is, on what the real opportunity is. So I'm doing this podcast content in part to reaffirm that my goal is to be the best father and husband, family person I possibly can. And in support of that is to be the best fractional CMO I can. And I hope that when I listen to this, if I ever do in the future and I come back and be like, that's still my big, hairy, audacious goal. But the next 90 days, that goal looks like being able to take my family on vacation to see other family in Canada. That goal looks like acquiring 2 new fractional engaged clients to support financially and still within my time budget. That goal looks like creating a program in my fractional CMO business where now I have a roster of other marketing vendors and I'm leading them and getting them more clients and outsourcing work through Thunderstock Marketing to support, the team that I'm building of contractors and other, organizations. So I'm telling you guys my goals because they're written down, but I'm also telling you guys these goals as proof that my one goal is to become the best father and husband possible. And to do that, I'm using my business as a method to get there. So I hope that this rant inspires you to take a look at your goals and look at your actions, look at your calendar, and say, what are you spending the most time, effort, money, and attention on? And map that out towards achieving the number one goal that you want. And don't delude yourself into thinking that, for me, if I were to wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to be a UFC fighter again, that would be a fatal error because that goal has already been, we've seen it to its conclusion and it doesn't end well. So part of me saying this is for my own memory. Part of this is so that you guys can choose what it is and get after it. And if you like this rant and you want to hear more of it, I urge you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, to my Spotify. And if you want to learn more about what I do as a fractional CMO, or you want to be on the podcast, I urge you to reach out. But if I had one goal for this episode, it's that you would sharing the show, subscribing, reaching out, that's great. But my one goal is for you to, if you found value, contact me and tell me what you found valuable. Give me some feedback. All right. With that note, Thunderstock Show out. Another great episode. Looking forward to talking to you guys more in the near future. Peace.